guys. In today's live stream, we're going to be trying to fix up this AHM Conrail center cab switcher. I bought this locomotive back in 2021, and it doesn't seem to run. The motor starts up and it revs, but the locomotive does not move, so we've definitely got some kind of a transmission issue. It could just be a worm gear spinning around the drive shaft, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the case. Either way, we're going to open this thing up and see if we can get it running again. What's interesting about this locomotive is it actually has both brands on it, because this was sold under the AHM name, and AHM was more of a distributor, kind of like Walthers, but they also sold engines under their name. So this one was made by Mahano, but it was sold as an AHM. You've also got the RSO and A-Test signs on there. A lot of people label these as brands. Like if you look up RSO or A-Test on eBay, a lot of these locomotives will be listed under one of these brands, but they're not actually brands. They're emission regulations for radio frequency in Yugoslavia, where they were making these back in the day. So that's why both those are on there. Anyway, I'll take it over to the track and I'll show you all what it's currently doing, and then we'll actually dig into this thing. And hopefully we can get it running again. I'm not really sure what to expect with this one, but you know, it's a fairly simple engine, so hopefully things will be straightforward. Although every time I do one of these videos, I find that you know, it starts off seeming simple enough, and then we discover something really bad. And if we give it power, you can hear that the motor is running in there. There isn't any headlight or anything like that, but you can hear that the motor is clearly doing its job. The engine's not going. So it's definitely a transmission issue. I think there might actually be a light. It's just very dim. So we'll see if maybe that needs to be put back into place. But yeah, let's see what's going on here. A bunch of people. We got 104 people already in here. I feel like I'm watching a normal SMT video, but it's a live stream. Yeah. So I'm just going to try to get this shell off here. Huh. The motor's actually mounted a little bit differently than I was expecting. A lot of these have the motor facing downwards. This one's actually mounted vertically, which is interesting. Got a couple of weights right here. They're just loose. I guess the shell is supposed to just hold those in place. And if we dig in here, you can kind of see that this is loose. I wonder if that's why this hasn't been going. Is it just that the motor was out of place? Let's check that out. We also have a light on one side, but not the other, which is a little bit strange considering that you know, you've got holes for headlights on both sides. I feel like this is probably actually supposed to be like here to light up the cab. I mean, you know, a lot more light could definitely come through there. So we might try to rejig that, but first, I just want to actually try to get this thing going again. So I'll bring it back over to the track and see if that's the problem. I feel like there's a decent chance it is. AHM Mahano is my favorite. I mean, they weren't the highest quality engines, but these were sold at a very low price point, and compared to like Lifelike, Tyco, and Bachmann, I would argue these were higher quality products. Most of them were all-wheel drive. And when you know it, well, I'm going to give it a little bit more voltage. It still runs like crap, but it did move a little bit under its own power that time. Give it all the voltage here. Yeah, it's really rough, but it is trying to go, so. Yeah, the motor's just popping out of place and then it's spinning, so we'll have to fix that. I don't know if we're missing any parts there, but there's got to be something we can do with this thing. I would like to figure out why exactly the motor is just, you know, loose like that. Got a linkage on the back. I don't know if that's doing its job. It almost looks like there should be like a clip on the front or something. But the gears, in my opinion, don't look stripped out. That can happen on these things sometimes, so that's good. And I'm guessing that this bottom part probably does come out. I think if you remove that screw, take it apart just for the heck of it, just try to make sure there's no dust or hair inside the drive. We need something with a little more torque. Maybe a clip broke or fell out. Well, we've got the rear clip. I just don't know if there's supposed to be another one on the front. Got to use that SMT universal motor mount. Yeah, exactly. If this thing has problems, like if the motor is missing a clip and I can't find a suitable replacement, I think I will just glue it in place. I mean, that's not an ideal practice, but this engine's also kind of junked. Like, somebody did a lot of bad stuff to it. You can see it's missing parts there, and most of the handrails are gone, so really not too worried about that. And I mean, it's not the worst I've ever seen, but you know, it is messy. Just trying to figure out how you're actually supposed to remove the bottom, though. Unless the wheels were just pressed into place, but if that's what they did, that would be a first for me. I'm guessing that this whole transmission maybe comes up. I'm seeing a clip right here. So we could try to maybe remove that. Not do anything. Looks like almost like there's clips here as well. Oh, whole side comes out. This is my first time taking apart one of these locomotives in particular. I've worked on some other four-wheel switchers, but this one right here is a first for me, so it's gonna take a little bit of learning here and there. And I think we must have a second clip somewhere here. I'm thinking that it's there. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so really simple stuff, as a lot of the 040s are. I'm gonna pull out these wheels right here so we can clean up all this junk. Again, this is far from the worst locomotive I've ever seen, but it's always a good idea just to go through here, because nothing will choke out a motor quicker than dust and hair. And I'm really not too surprised that it was having trouble picking up power. Like, look at how much junk is on these contacts. That's not gonna do it any good. And the motor is pretty fouled as well. I'm surprised that ran as well as it did. So we'll clean some here and there. I used too much lube on the motor and it was burning up. Yeah, that can happen if you oil too close to the commutator. Just look at how much better that already looks. When should I get new oil? Well, it depends. On a modern locomotive, you don't have to change the oil that often, just because it's all plastic gears and, you know, they're all new. On an older engine, especially one with metal gears, I would change the oil probably every 6 months, or at least add some new oil to it, just because metal gears, like if you have brass gears, those will strip out very fast without any oil. Plastic gears will tolerate, you know, the lack of oil for a while. It's still not good, but yeah, if you have an engine with metal gears, definitely keep on top of your oil. I've seen a lot of engines with metal gears that are completely stripped out. And this one, I don't think it was run on carpet, but it was definitely run on the floor, because there's all kinds of junk caught in here. Look at that. It's just ridiculous. This is the stuff that destroys motors. Like, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, you know, don't give your engine too much voltage. And I mean, high voltage, when you have a lot of stuff jammed in your gearbox, will damage an engine, but strain on a motor will kill a motor quicker than anything else. And dust and hair definitely do not help that. What's the most cursed engine in your collection? I've got a fake unstoppable locomotive, which I bought from Ginfire, also known as the Rock and Roll Trains Emporium on eBay. He's always making all sorts of, you know, different fictional railroads and stuff. I personally love that kind of stuff, but you do see those things popping up in a lot of forums, so Yeah, I would say that's probably the most cursed engine I currently own. I miss working on my trains when I was a young kid. Well, old engines like this are only worth like a few bucks, so I mean, don't let it stop you, you know? If you want to work on this kind of stuff, they're a dime a dozen. A lot of people say model railroading is an expensive hobby. It definitely can be, but if you're fine working on this kind of junk, you can, if you look long enough and hard enough, you will find cheap engines, you know? Especially train shows, people, like, you could find something like this in a junk bin. I think this engine cost me $5 on eBay. It was with a lot, so, you know, part of it was just because I was buying in bulk, but these things are not worth a lot of money. Nobody who models realistically really wants these kinds of engines. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is all cool, because they make them cheaper for the rest of us. Well, you're working on this locomotive. I'm building my very first HO scale layout. Well, congratulations. That must be exciting. Yeah, this one has a fair bit of hair packed in it. A few bucks here in Europe, it's $30. But there are antique stores and train shops that will overcharge for these types of locomotives. Like, I'm talking about like flea markets and things like that. That's where you find these things dirt cheap. You need to find somebody who does not want this, because there are some modelers who have a ton of this stuff, but they don't want it, and they'll practically give it away for free. Or join a train club. Sometimes guys at train clubs will bring in a box of junk. The model's from eBay. Yeah, it was in an eBay lot. You can look up, I don't know, maybe HO scale locomotive switchers lot from eBay or something. This was featured in a video about 4 years ago. Would working on a model train affect the value if you're trying to sell them? It depends. You know, if you have a really pristine locomotive that's never been modified, you know, like an old River Rossi or something like that, I would say it probably would affect the value. But if you have an engine like this where it's not running and it's not worth a whole lot to begin with, if you can get it running again, it will increase the value. So, you know, this engine as a non-runner is worth maybe $5. As a runner, maybe you could get 15 for it. So, you know, you might be able to triple the value if you're willing to dig into it. But yeah, I have seen some engines where somebody's dug into something and it would have been better if they had just left it alone. At the same time too, though, you can't be too scared, because when you're working with cheap engines like this, the worst case scenario is you total it and it was $5. You know what I mean? Like, these are not rare engines. So if you're trying to like build up your skills on how to fix up stuff, you want to look for old AHMs and things like that, because they're dirt cheap. No one wants them. And you can learn a lot. Like a high-end engine does have some stuff in common, at least in terms of, you know, how it works in its most basic form. I love that my hobby shop was near me. I was close to it until they closed up. I would buy things for my trains from them all over the time. Yeah. I mean, I have a hobby shop that's about 30 minutes away, so it's not quite next door, but still, it is a very handy thing if you need something. What's the worst looking but running locomotive you have? It's an old British Columbia Railway engine. I got it in 2013. Some friends, I guess I'd got a bunch of trains from a cousin at a garage sale or something. It was kind of like the lot was being passed from person to person and nobody really wanted it. So they were going to put it out at the end of the road, and they asked me if I wanted it. I was like, yeah, sure. And it's an old Lifelike. It's in horrible condition, but it does still run. The sides of the wheels are not looking that bad. It is a good idea to clean these on locomotives that have contacts. Some of the older ones have riveted cover plates underneath. Ron from Classic Mall Trains did a good video on the different types. The old Mantua Tycos do have rivets on them. Not very hard to drill out, but it does make servicing them a little bit harder. I do find, though, that the Mantua Tycos are pretty tough locomotives. Sometimes you can just throw some new oil in them, clean up the motor a little bit, and they'll be just fine. But yeah, it's really about getting the hair out of these things. Another good thing about working on older locomotives is if you can't get it running, you can use it for parts or start to build a parts bin. Ask me how I know. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the best things is, like, you know, I have a parts bin of engines. Like, I get some engines, and, you know, to me, it's kind of like a 50-50. So if you have an engine that has most of its parts, you can probably get it running again. If it's missing most of its parts, it's over that 50% mark, I usually just part them out. But that parts bin has led to the revival of countless locomotives, so it's definitely still worth it. And Charlie, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you watch Real Trains? I go rail fanning every once in a while, but the truth is, where I am in Ottawa, you know, there's not a lot of rail activity anymore. It's not a very industrial area like it once was. So the only area where you can kind of actively catch freight trains is Smith Falls, and it's about an hour drive. Not the end of the world, but it's not something I do every day, that's for sure. I wish I could. I wish there was more stuff going on here, but that's just the deck of cards. It's not a vertical motor. It is horizontal. I was surprised when I opened that to see it was all laid out that way. So that's looking a little bit better. Just gonna actually clean out the gaps now. Just need to find something to sharpen this a little bit. I would say in fixing up an engine, this is probably one of the most important parts, cleaning out these little gaps here. Okay, that all seems fine. Put some oil on the outside, and I'll throw a little on the inside here, let that soak in. I'm also going to clean up the wheels. These are pretty bad on the outside. The insides were good, but I think whoever had this thing before me was not cleaning the wheels on it. So this is probably the first wheel cleaning it's received since it left the factory some 40 years ago. I hope to do some rail fanning in Reno, Nevada. It's a this one's not a Mantua. This is a AHM. SMT, should I repair my 484 Bachmann Northern? If you've had a lot of experience repairing stuff and are willing to fail at it, I would say yes. But if you haven't had a lot of experience working on things, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, because I'm guessing it's probably one of the ones with the Bachmann pancake drive. And I tell you what, they're a nightmare to work on. There's a lot of hobby shops which will just straight out refuse them. Even the ones you do get running, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. Like I got a GS4 running again. It was a Canadian National that somebody had repainted, and in a live stream maybe about a month or two ago, that one failed again. So I would just be careful, because I feel like it could be a letdown. What's the difference between the older Bachmanns and Bachmann Plus? So the original Bachmanns had the pancake drive. Those things were junk. The Bachmann Plus models were a lot better, where they actually had a proper can motor, and they actually had a flywheel. Apparently those ones are a lot easier to fix. I haven't worked on much of that myself, so I can't really say. But Bachmann had made a lot of improvements to the drivetrain, so they are a better design. Did you know that Conrail actually ran in the state of Virginia at one time? I thought Conrail was in quite a few places in the US. I know they even ran into Canada, because Sparky 107 107, he's from like Kitchener, and there's a ton of he's a guy who models Conrail. I guess, I don't know, that's where a lot of the trains would meet at the border. I have some Athearn metal flywheels, a couple of GP35 switcher engines. They tend to run hot. I might put some shorter brushes on them, tired of tearing them down, with the same results, light oil, grease. Well, for the worm gears, I would definitely throw some grease on there, but for the gears themselves, just put some oil in there. I mean, old Athearns are not very efficient engines, so they're always going to run warm, but yeah, it could be a sign that there's a problem. I tried to run it, but the motor was smoking. Well, clean the commutator, just like I did, you know, clean out all the gaps, because 9 times out of 10, I find that's where stuff is burning. If not, you might just have bad coils. What British trains do you have? I have a Mallard. I've got a 440. I have the Scotsman, and I also have a Flying Scotsman. The Flying Scotsman doesn't run, and the regular Scotsman hasn't run for about 60 years, but I'm planning to get those going soon. Yeah, so I think those wheels are looking decent enough. I'll clean the frame while we're in here too. I feel like that's just going to be a lot easier to do when we already have this thing apart. Just got to find my paintbrush here so we can actually do that job. Do you have any Long Island Railroad? I don't think I do. Unfortunately, I'm a 2010s kid. I never got to see Conrail running in person. I never did either. Apparently Conrail still exists, though. At least they have a website, and they're listed as a provider for, I think, Norfolk Southern and CSX. So now I'll start putting this thing back together. I'm not seeing any buildup of grease or anything like that, so I think we can just go ahead and throw the gears back in it. Put some oil in all the spots where we're actually going to put the gears back. And I'll take care of all the bushings. I don't know what you'd call these. One thing I can't remember is which way the gears went. I think the teeth are supposed to be on this side, and then this top one is kind of slides in like that. We'll see. So close. I think it's this one holding us up. I have a family friend who drove for Conrail for almost 10 years. He has so many Conrail Railroad memorabilia in his basement. It's like a small museum. That's pretty cool. I swear the only reason I got into railroading is because there's a CSX-owned railroad crossing not even 1,000 feet from where I live. I wish CSX would install a quiet zone there. I feel like a lot of people could kind of relate to that. In my case, like, I think the reason I'm into trains is because my granddad had a place right beside a tourist railroad, and every weekend my dad would drive up there to have coffee with him and my grandmother, and we'd wait till we heard the sound of the whistle and we'd run down. It was a live steam operation. They also had a diesel. But I feel like everybody who's into trains either watched Thomas or they were near some kind of rail activity and grew up with that. Seems to be kind of one or the other. Maybe both. So I feel like that all looks pretty good right there. I guess I'll reinstall the wheels. And I imagine this is probably one of those cases where you stick one side in there and get that all back together. Contacts all look good, so I think we can go ahead and reinstall the motor. I guess the couplers are just held in place by the actual chassis here. A little unconventional, but they were really trying to cut down costs when they were building these things back in the day. Charles says, I grew up in New York City and I love riding the subway. I've never been on the New York subway, but I feel like that network is all pretty cool. I have some old NYC subway cars in the collection. New York City is a pretty cool place. I've been there a couple times in my life. Trying to figure out how we're going to get this motor to stay in place here. I mean, I could just put a bit of glue there and I bet that would work pretty well, but I want to actually make sure all this is working correctly first. A little bit of that. We would build BMX trails by the railroad tracks on the south side of Chicago. Trains and bikes. That sounds like a fun time. I had one friend who had a house beside a railroad track, and one time we didn't build like a tree fort, but we built like a platform up in the trees where you could kind of see the railroad. It was really far away, like I'm talking like a couple hundred feet, and there was only like this like little kind of gap through the trees where you could see it, but we had a lot of fun setting that up and watching trains back in the day. Now, there was a clip which went around the back of the motor, and I had that at the beginning of the live stream, so I don't know how I managed to lose it, but even without that, the motor still was not being held in place properly, so I might just take off without it. But I'm just going to check on the floor and just make sure I didn't drop that. Use some glue SMT. Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen here. Yeah, it's all right. We don't need that part. We just need to get her running. I do wonder where that original part went, but, you know. What do you think about the RMS Olympic? I love it. It's one of my favorite ships. I feel like the Titanic, I mean, I get why the Titanic's a famous story. It's like it kind of defied the odds in terms of how many things could properly go wrong. It was like Murphy's Law was in every phase of that ship. But I feel like the Olympic doesn't get enough attention as being kind of a miraculous ship in the fact that, you know, it was not there for the Halifax explosion. It was hit by a torpedo, and the torpedo was a dud. It didn't sink. It sank a U-boat. It was a hero. Like, it helped, you know, Canada, the U.S., and I think England, too, in the First World War. So I feel like it doesn't get enough praise. I hope that one day they make a movie about it. Because they used to call that ship Old Reliable. And there's some great videos on that if you want to see on the history. Oh, the motor clip was here the whole time. Oh well, extra support. It doesn't really look like that's doing its job either, so you know what? I think I'm just going to kind of tack it in place. The wonderful thing about Crazy Glue is that if you just use a little bit like this, it will only tack it. So if I really need to get this motor back out of here, it's not going to be impossible. The Whopper short was super funny. I'm glad you liked that. This is kind of a silly joke, but yeah, I thought it was funny finding that Whopper engine. I've always liked that commercial. I'm not even like a big Burger King guy, but I just like that, like Whopper, 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 Whopper. The motor clip is sitting in the frame. Okay, I'm guessing the comment came in late because, yeah, it's right there. I'm from Florida. I'm a Florida man. I had some friends up from Florida about 2 weeks ago, and there was this one guy I met, and he was showing me pictures of alligators they had caught. I went back. Oh, thanks for doing that. I do appreciate it. I just found out that this was in place a little bit sooner. This is missing a coupler, though, but I have an idea which I think is going to work pretty well for that. So I think that is well tacked in place. I'm just going to try to see if I can find a knuckle coupler, because an idea I had for this locomotive is that on one side, because it's a center cab locomotive, we put a horn hook on one side and a knuckle coupler on the other, and then this can kind of be a universal locomotive. Do you have any Back to the Future stuff on your layout? I have a Sierra locomotive. I also have a DeLorean, but I don't know where that is at the moment. This is down here. I don't know. And we got that. I think that should do just fine. Hey, SMT, I have a funny joke. I don't get it. I'm new to the channel. Welcome. Yeah, so this coupler right here should probably be thrown out because the spring is no good, but I think this one is going to work just fine. Knuckle couplers are more expensive in Germany. I thought in Germany they used those, the other style where they folded over each other. I don't own a crazy amount of German equipment, so I'm not like an expert or anything, but I always thought it was a different style. I have thrown knuckle couplers on some of my European equipment, though, just because the majority of the rolling stock I have is North American. So I've got some British engines which can now haul North American cars. It looks a little strange, but that's okay. I think maybe I'm putting this on backwards. No, I'm not, because that needs to line up. Which means this is just being difficult. So one thing I don't really love about these 040s is that you gotta like get both couplers in place, all clamped down, and then secure the screw at the same time. I also think this might not be lining up correctly. What I'll do is I'll throw the screw in here and I just will tighten it down like a couple turns, and then that should hold everything in place. So the wonderful thing about plastic is that it is somewhat forgiving. Is that a Bachmann knuckle coupler? Yeah, it's not my favorite, but if I'm working on a cheap engine like this, I don't really want to be throwing a $2 Katy in it because it's going to be worth more than the engine. I bet if we just kind of so I'll back this off just a couple turns, we'll get it so the plastic can stretch just enough, and then we'll just kind of wiggle the coupler in there. I think that will work. You didn't test? I tested the motor. The motor was running right out of the gate, so we know that's good. It was just about trying to get the whole drivetrain running again because it was kind of slipping. Yeah, there we go. We just have to figure out how we're gonna kind of put all the lighting here. Got this piece of lead right here. I guess the headlight is supposed to go up front because they got this gap in the lead, but I'm going to put it up here. I think it will look way cooler if this thing has a cab light. And just before I throw it back on there, I'll grab that paintbrush again and we'll get some of the dust and stuff out of this thing. I know Charlie of Chadwick uses some Katy couplers on his trains. Well, they're very reliable, I tell you what. Some of the modern European trains, though, use NEM couplers, and those you can just get a special conversion coupler, which just pops right into place. So, like the QJ uses those. It's not even European in that case, but a lot of the European engines have the same thing, like my couple of my British engines there. I'd be wearing gloves if that was lead. Lead is not a dangerous thing so long as it doesn't get in the body. Like, you can touch lead and it's not going to poison you. It's just about making sure you don't touch lead and then touch your eyes, or, you know, have a sandwich after or something like that. You just need to wash your hands after working with it. And obviously don't sand this stuff. I think that will work. Let's go test it. Getting ahead of ourselves here. Yeah, we got a runner. Serenity. That actually runs really quiet for one of these old AHMs. These things are usually super loud. Let's see, we got both directions. Yeah, no problem. She's a beauty. Maybe like a bit of a low speed test here. Yeah, not the most remarkable low speed, but it's running fairly smooth. It just kicks out a little bit early. Now at this point, we'll see if we can haul some cars. It's not going to have crazy pulling capacity. You know, it is a 4-wheel engine, and in this case, it's only 2-wheel drive. So I suspect it maybe would haul about 5 cars if we're lucky. Yeah, let's see if it can handle 5 here. Yeah, it's definitely slipping a little bit there. I think this coupler might be a bit bent. It's actually making contact with the frame a tiny bit. Just kind of bend that up a little bit. Let's see what this thing can do. Maybe we can haul a couple more cars. I have 2 of those switchers, but the motors were completely shot. I modified them, make a new floor, and adding NWSL statin drive trucks at the end. It works great, but I wish I didn't have to. Did you post that project on a model railroading forum? Because I saw somebody online who had modified almost this exact engine. Yeah, that coupler definitely needs some adjustments. Yeah, it's kind of holding up. Yeah, so that's definitely kind of the maximum of what one of these things can haul. Still, 8 cars. Even in the real world, these things cannot haul a crazy amount, so it's not bad. Oh, it's struggling. Yeah, okay, so doesn't have quite enough oomph for 8 cars. I wonder if we can at least get it back here. Nope. Let's take a couple cars off there. So we got like, I don't know, what, 6 cars now? Oh, it's an easy way to get out of work. Just ditch what you're doing. This is Bachmann couplers. They just cannot take strain. It's just in those corners it can't take the weight. One thing I am curious to see, though, is if it can handle the figure 8. Let's kind of adjust this. I think this should work. Yeah, it doesn't love the hill. I know Bachmann makes the worst couplers. They just can't take, because they're plastic, so they flex a lot. I mean, in a cheap engine like this, it's not going to be hauling a lot of cars anyway, but for any serious engines that are going to be hauling, 20-car trains, you definitely want to have some good metal couplers. Add wet leaves on the hill. Slide right back down. Works well. Yeah, well, that's the wonderful thing about the 040s is, they're not too picky with the track they run on. Put it on the high speed there. I might designate this engine just to running on the hills here. I don't know. Sometimes when I'm showing people the layout, it's just nice to have something actually running through here. Imagine trying to use that as a switcher. I should haul this thing down at the train club. I'm sure they'd love it. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Like, decent new engine added to the collection. I feel like I've probably got some more of these to work on, but I think for today that works pretty good. You run it on the streetcar line, if it'll do it. Just gonna switch this. Just gotta stop this because CSX is about to run into a train over there. I don't understand how it can go through here once and be fine and derail this thing. second time. I guess I could try it in the other direction. See if it likes that a little bit better. Seems to work pretty well, actually. Do one of these perspectives. See if it will operate a little bit slower. It's the Truman Show set. I don't think it looks too similar to the Truman Show. We'll do one of it going by Aunt Edna's house. I think it's starting to do a little bit better with the low speed now. You should cut the trip pins on the coupler. Yeah, I agree. Any plans to work on the N scale layout? I probably will, although I gotta say with the latest renovation, it's working pretty well. I can hear the screeching, yeah. Yeah, the flanges are definitely digging into the rail a little. Hey Harrison and others here. Before we seem to be ending, is it okay, model railroading-wise, to mix scales and buildings versus your layout scale? I run S-gauge, but I think about having some HO scale buildings. Is it going to be perfectly prototypical? No. But if it looks okay, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you know what, like, something I always keep coming back to in terms of model railroading is, like, the whole point of being in the hobby is just for fun. So if you enjoy putting some HO scale buildings on your S scale layout, that's fine. The only thing I think I would probably recommend in terms of, you know, if you want to make it look a little bit more realistic, is to maybe mess around with forced perspective. So when they're shooting certain like movies, you know, they'll put a figure closer to the camera and another figure further away, but then the angle of the camera will make it look like they're right beside each other. And basically it just makes things, it gives the desired effect. So if you're going to mix some HO scale buildings, maybe keep all the HO scale buildings in one section of the layout and the S scale buildings in another, but put the HO scale ones in a distance, and it will actually make the layout look larger because the HO buildings are smaller. It will just make them seem like they're more far away, if that makes sense. And maybe if you do that, you can get away with it. Because I know a lot of guys who actually use like Hot Wheels cars and stuff on their layout, And to me, they don't look quite right when you put them beside a building, but if you put them beside a mountain, because there isn't as much of a comparison in a person's mind for scale, because a mountain can be any size, whereas a building, you know, you kind of have an idea of how tall it should be and everything. It kind of works a little bit better. So that's the only bit of advice I'd have there. It's mostly because of a 4x8, so layout space is a premium. Well, that's another good point. I guess if you're running all HO scale buildings, it definitely is going to free up a lot of room. The truth is, too, there's a lot of HO buildings which are not really built to scale. Like, for example, this is an HO scale factory, and it's the same size as, like, a house. And the houses are also not built to scale. So even a lot of the HO stuff is not really one-to-one. A lot of manufacturers would shrink buildings down. Like this right here is supposed to be a grocery store. But if you compare it to like a gazebo, you can see they're almost the same size. Like a lot of the manufacturers knew that people had 4x8s and stuff like that. And so they shrunk the buildings down just so you'd have more room to work with. If you look very closely at the track, there's a tiny bump on them. Well, I'll have a look later. It's possible. Anyway, I think with this thing successfully running, I'll finish off the live stream. But thank you all so much for joining me this weekend, getting this thing running again. I'm quite happy with the results. This was definitely a lot easier than the last live repair I did, where we actually ended up having to replace the entire motor. But yeah, seems to run pretty darn well for what it is. Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. I'll try to get some video along the way, but I kind of slow down on the content because it's so hot outside. I've been running that air conditioner non-stop. Anyway, have a wonderful day, everyone.